to come learn a little bit more about Foothill at the Coffee with Mr. G. And so while we are here live, we also are streaming this for families who can access it online, okay? So we realized at one of the previous coffees with Mr. G that, that when we asked for a show of hands, how many have been at Foothill for 2 years or less, 2 years or more, we noticed that about 40% of the audience was here about 2 years or less. And that was interesting because and then when you think about it, every year we get a whole new group of kindergartners, that's about 60 kids, and a whole new group of TK kids, that's 50, that's 75 times 2 years, 150. So that's a good 35% of our student body are new, fairly new, and they don't know a lot about Foothill. And we think we've communicated things. We think people know more than maybe they do because it's been a while since we've covered some things. So today's topic, and coming up in the future, we're going to introduce you to some of the, I think, signature programs, some of the programs that Foothill has become known for. And today we're going to focus on fine arts. And when you see 5 chairs sitting here, I don't know many schools our size that have such a emphasis on the arts. We're very proud of that. So we're going to get started here, and we're going to introduce you to our fine arts team. But before we go too much further, just want to have a couple of quick announcements. One, this Thursday is the Great California Shakeout. And that's a time when all of California, a lot of businesses and agencies and entities will go through earthquake drills. We participate on that day as well. And so the students will evacuate. We'll go through our protocols and our procedures. We have about 7 or 8 response teams who will each go through their paces. We have search and rescue, we have first aid, we have command central, we have support, we have student release, and those types of things. So I'll say to you here, because I don't know how often we've communicated this, but the reunion place, if there was an earthquake and you then had to come and pick up your child, is the kids will be in the back lot. That's further away from buildings, further away from telephone and electrical wires, and so they'll be back there. So the reunion gate will be at the pedestrian gate to the junior highs, where we'll release the kids to you. And Daryl and his our child care director and his team will be responsible for that. Of course, the teachers and the aides are with the students. So we will participate in that this Thursday. But we kind of had a little bit of a scare yesterday. There was, I guess, some at least veiled threats. Maybe I went a little too far to say that that it was a bomb threat, although that's what we were informed of at a couple of the local high schools. I think some of the private Catholic schools. I think the Archdiocese did more. And there's a fine line between being safe and how much do you respond. And I think in these kinds of cases, most people would rather err on the side of caution than anything else. But we were under no specific threat, and although it was good feeling to have yesterday it was Officer Ted, today it's Officer Bob on campus. And so Officer Ted and I, we walked the perimeter, and he thinks like a former law enforcement person. So he looked in trash cans for suspicious packages or backpacks, and he was very thorough in kind of searching it out and remained vigilant throughout the day. And so I just wanted you to be aware that, and then we tried to communicate that. I mistakenly said that St. Lucy's had evacuated, and they did not. And so I retracted that in fairness to St. Lucy's, because the principal called me and said, Mr. G, you like throw me under the bus here. We have no such thing. So I retracted that. And so that was my bad. I humbly admit that. And so I think we need our information going out to be reliable, trustworthy. And so that was a rookie mistake for a veteran administrator to make. So, and then last announcement is this is our 60th anniversary at Foothill. And we have a celebration coming up on Friday, November 3rd, 7 o'clock at the Hall. Performing Arts and Citrus, campus of Citrus College. It's going to be great. It seats 1,400 people. and we probably have filled up more than half of it at this point. So some people say, oh, I'll get my tickets, I'll get my tickets. But the tickets they're assigned seats, so they're filling up from the front to the back. So don't delay if you're planning on attending that. And it's going to be a great showcase of various programs. We'll tell a little bit about the history, and I think it'd be a great way to mark our 60th anniversary. And I encourage each and everybody to attend that. So thank you for that. Okay. All right, let's focus on our fine arts program. And so at this time, I'd like to introduce and call up some of our team, and then we'll talk a little bit about them. Some of them have to get onto classes, some of them have to get onto private lessons, so we've got a tight little schedule here for them. So ladies, if you could come up. Dashanique Fizel is our art teacher, and by the way, she has some art displayed over here. And Amy Knight's next. She's our orchestra director. Zoe Stretch is our music and choir vocal teacher. Doris Kohler is our private piano instructor, and Jen Robinson. So let's give a round of applause for them. So I think that Foothill's known for a couple things. Obviously, academic rigor, spiritual emphasis, but then people would go down rate them fairly close: fine arts, technology, maybe even athletics. But we're very proud of our fine arts team. And so I think what we'll do is we get right into it. So Ms. Wilson, would you mind telling a little bit about art? Because I know you love art. We all love art. Yeah. And I'll let you say a few things about it, and then introduce Dash. And each one will take a few minutes to explain a little bit about them and their program.
Yeah. Well, I think when we think about fine arts or even visual arts, which Mrs. Fizel will talk about in just a second, we forget just the benefits of it and the importance of it. You know, in the last several years, you kind of see some schools like the fine arts kind of has dwindled a little bit, and is it important? And there's been debate about that. But if you really look at the research, you see how much good comes out of fine arts, visual arts, music, theater. Things like that you wouldn't even think of, especially academics. It supports that. You know, research shows that academic skills increase when they're able to use different parts of their brain and make those connections. But then also, like, if you really think about it, just like in sports, when we have our theater department or we have our orchestra, I mean, there's still teamwork and collaboration. And if someone doesn't do their part, then it feels like a missing piece. So it's kind of like sports in that way too. But then also through visual arts, decision making, right? What color am I gonna use? And so we're creating, making decision makers. And the reality is, and we kind of touched on this with the Coffee with Mr. G really small last time, is that you know, these jobs that are going to be in the future haven't been created yet, and if we don't tap into the creativity or the importance of fine arts, then you know the new industries that will be out there, our kids will be behind if they don't take part in something like this. I mean, I can go on and on about these benefits, and even if you wanted to talk to me afterwards about all the other great things about art, then we can. But first, I know, because Mrs. Fizel has an art class in just a little bit at 9 o'clock, I do want to introduce her. She oversees elementary and junior high art, and she mostly focuses on visual art, and you can see some of that. But she's doing a ton of different mediums, which she'll share in just a little bit too. So we're so lucky to have Mrs. Fizel. She's great with the kids and makes a big difference here. So go ahead, Mrs. Fizel, if you want to share more.
I appreciate it. So on your tables, there's a front and back side to your pages. So if you guys grab one and take your time when you're at home or now just to skim through it, it kind of gives a little bit more in depth of what I do with the 2nd through 8th grade students. We do watercolor, acrylic painting. When you guys have time, you guys can go over to the countertop over there and look. There is a art book over there that you can actually pick up and go through. Just, of course, be careful if you're taking drinks or food over there. I tell the students that we love and appreciate their artwork, and we respect their artwork and what they have to share with the school, because it is a big deal when the kids are willing to share what they feel not just with myself as a teacher and administration, but with the rest of the school. So if you get a chance as well, we have display cases downstairs and upstairs, and we have a wall outside the office with artwork that the students have done. But I think one of the biggest takeaways for visual art with the students to understand is we talk a lot about growth mindset here at the school, and I can't see a better way of showing growth mindset, visual art. You know, they start in 2nd grade and they go, oh, I'm struggling with this. And I say, you're struggling with it now. You're not there yet, but you're going to get there. So the junior high students share their work with the lower grades share their work with the older grades, and it's just a lot of fun. And I enjoy it. I get to do a little art with them sometimes, but overall it's just a pleasure to be able to teach visual arts here at the school.
Great.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Can I piggyback? Mrs. Fiesel is so good about feedback and group critique, which is so important in the art industry, but really any industry, any jobs in the future. That's what kids are going to experience. They're going to have to be able to take feedback. So the fact that you give them those opportunities is huge. But then also, as we start to see art displayed in our hallways and display cases, what's really neat is we get to see how the kids are viewing the world. And through art, they start to expand on that. They get to see, oh, this is a different way to view things and perspective and color. And I'm drawing this vase, but I've looked at this vase, you know, over and over and over again in my living room. But now that I'm drawing it, I'm seeing textures that I didn't see before. I'm seeing color. So now they tap into this totally different perspective into our world, which I think is huge, you know, and what a cool opportunity for our students to be involved in that. So.
And we start that in 2nd grade through 8th grade. Pardon me. Kindergarten and 1st grade, they're always doing art, arts and crafts, seasonal art, letter art. There's always stuff going on. So about 2nd grade, they start getting into the formal instruction, and some of the, you know, there's a genius in every child, right? For some people, the visual arts and whether the medium is, I mean, you look at some of those paintings over there, absolutely incredible. And you talk about expression. We had a student at a chapel, and the chapel speaker talked about how sometimes life can be awkward. You can feel like a fish out of water, and there are maybe, but you'll bloom, you know, over time. Don't you know? Because middle school can be awkward for kids, and maybe not always the best experience for some. They haven't hit their stride yet, or they haven't recognized their own giftedness. So this student painted a picture of flowers, and it's beautiful. She gave it to Miss Wilson, and Miss Wilson showed it to me, and I'm like, what am I go, this is beautiful. And I'm looking at these flowers and texture, and now, wait a minute, what am I looking at? Do I see a fish in there? And there was a fish in there. I go, now, am I looking at the bottom of the ocean? What am I looking at here? And it just pulled me into it. And she told me the story that this girl painted fish out of water that will bloom in its season. That was beautiful. So that was an expression for me that was, I think, just kind of spoke to her giftedness and ability to interpret life through art. Yeah. And on the website, and those who are online, I think we scrolled through the page on the website. Miss Fiesel sponsored with APU, Azusa Pacific University, an art exhibit a couple years ago in the spring, and the kids' work was featured there. It was a great opportunity for them to showcase their talents.
And Mr. G, I can't help but I have to mention this. While Mrs. Fiesel is focusing on visual art, and it's great, in painting in different mediums, acrylics, watercolor, all these things, we did implement a digital art and animation class this year for our junior hires, and it's incredible what they're coming up with. It's a completely different language, so they're learning applications like Procreate and Rough Animator, and just the other day, they were just drawing a ball, right, in Rough Animator, and you think, okay, whatever, everyone can draw a circle, but then there's these principles of animation I never even knew of, some vocabulary that the kids are learning to like stretch the ball as it bounces, you know what I mean? Or characters, they call it pose to pose, where a character is in one pose, and then how do you make them move to that different pose? Awesome. So that's also a neat, art, a part of visual art that the kids are beginning to tap into, and they love it as well. So I just wanted to mention that too. Miss McCune couldn't be here, but our kids have really great opportunity to be creative here at
So
our school.
we offered that class, one elective class this year, but the response was so positive and really overwhelming. We're offering 2 of those classes next, and the next 2 trimesters. That'd be our going forward. And so, by the way, if you have to go, then feel free to go.
They're busy.
And then we'll play musical chairs. No, I don't think we need to do that. In some ways, I don't think the next person needs an introduction. But by the way, how many years you been at Foothill?
I just hit 10 years.
10
in
years.
August.
10 years in August. Okay, great. And Miss Knight, how
Thanks,
long have you
Mrs.
been
Gazelle.
at
This
Foothill?
is year 15.
Year
for me.
15. I think this is how our school gets better. We got wonderful people who are phenomenal at what they do, and they've stuck around. That's how you build programs. And so nobody's built a program any more prolifically or kind of a signature program at Foothill than orchestra with Amy Knight. So Amy, talk to us a little about your program.
Yeah, well, I can't really talk about the orchestra without just introducing a little bit about my history. So I grew up in Colorado, and I moved here in 2009 to start my master's degree at Azusa Pacific University. And I wasn't really looking for a full-time job at the time, but I knew my passion. I knew I wanted to. I come from a strong youth orchestra program in Colorado, and I knew I wanted to eventually start something like that. I knew that God had called me to creativity and to orchestra, and when I met Mr. G in 2009 and interviewed for a full-time band position, God was like, go to that interview, and I was like, okay. And I've told this story before, but I went there, and he was like, would you like to start an orchestra program? We started that year with 5 kids, and that first Christmas concert, there's that picture, and we have some of the kids who stayed in the program all the way through high school, which I'll explain how that works in a second. But so we started with 5 kids, and then over the years we've just expanded and added. We added elective program for junior high pretty early on. Recently, last year, we added a second level, so we now have 2 different levels in our junior high elective program. We have the 3rd grade class. We have like a 3rd grade violin intro class, which is Suzuki style, so they're just learning the basics of the violin, of string instruments. And by the way, for those of you who don't know, orchestra includes violin, viola, cello, and string bass, the orchestral string instruments that eventually can lead to like a symphony orchestra experience later on. And the 3rd grade intro violin class, and then there's a 4th grade class where they can choose any of those instruments I just mentioned, and 5th grade as well, and then they choose a music track in 3rd grade, and then if they choose orchestra for their track, they pick their instrument for 4th grade, stick with that. We really encourage them to stick with that same instrument in 5th grade, and hopefully into junior high, and then in addition, we have private lessons for all of those instruments. And one thing, and I'll talk in a minute about the private lesson program, but I also especially want to talk about our youth orchestra.
Yeah, sure.
So yeah, the Foothill Christian Legacy Youth Orchestra, and I grew up playing in 2 different youth orchestras in high school and getting to tour the world and tour the country, and coming myself from a low-income family, that gave me opportunities and experiences that I would never have had if it wasn't for getting to play in those music ensembles. Also, for me, I know that I attribute my academic success to being in orchestra and my involvement in learning instruments and learning the violin especially. And so we started in 2015, the Foothill Christian Legacy Youth Orchestra, and that is a community orchestra, a community outreach program is how I like to describe it. We let students audition from Foothill. We have a lot of alumni audition, but anyone in the community can join. And especially the last couple years, we've started to get a reputation in the community, and we've had students come in and audition who just word of mouth heard about us from their friends, from other students. And so this year, we have just under 50 members in the orchestra,
Yes, yeah.
all string players.
How many altogether in everything? About 140?
Yeah, in the orchestra program, we have around 140
Yeah, that's
students. Yeah, and
amazing.
we count all the kids in private lessons. And by the way, we do offer private lessons as young as TK. So we can, any age, and I think one of the highlights of our private lesson program, which I'll talk a little bit more about, is just the fact that they can do lessons right here on campus,
Right.
which is really great. We
Yeah.
also offer instruments to them, instrument rentals, so they really have everything they could want. But a little bit more about the youth orchestra. So
And while you're getting ready to tell that, Dana is, Apollonia is here. And do you mind coming up, Dana? She's coming from classes, 2 classes, so, but we're good timing because we're talking about the orchestra, and Dana is the assistant to the orchestra.
yeah, and hi Dana. It's so good to see you. So why do we have Dana? Well, it's an incredible problem to have. Our orchestra just grew so big we went from 5 kids 15 years ago to more than I could put in one full-time job. And so now we have our orchestra assistant, Miss Apollonio, and she's teaching the 3rd graders this year and the 4th graders and a lot of the private lesson students. So it's been absolutely awesome to have her. And so yeah, our youth orchestra program as well has become a huge part of what I do. Even though they rehearse once a week, they tour every single year. They're performing at the 60th anniversary coming up really soon, so they have that big performance coming up. But in 2018, we started introducing an annual tour. Our first one was just to San Diego, but then the very next year we were invited to audition to perform at Carnegie Hall for a music festival, and we were accepted to do that. And I emailed Mr. G. I was like, just to let you know, I submitted this application and we got invited. And he's like, his response was like 1 sentence, and it was, we'll do everything we can to make that happen. And I'll never forget that, because that gave me a green light to have this vision that was beyond anything else.
Well, you know the old adage, how do you get to Carnegie Hall? The answer is usually practice, practice, practice. No,
Yeah.
it's fundraise, fundraise, fundraise.
Yeah, we should make T-shirts that say that. 'Cause they have the practice, practice, practice ones at Carnegie.
And tell us, and you did that twice now, and what about coming up?
Yeah, so we did Carnegie Hall twice. We've done Orlando. This year we're going international. We're going to France. It's the 80th anniversary of D-Day, and another just opportunity God gave us that we could not say no to. It's this year only, and it correlates also with the Summer Olympics in Paris, which is really special. And there's a special performance opportunity where they were inviting music ensembles from all over the world to come and perform, but especially from the U.S. for this D-Day festival in Normandy. So in June of 2024, our youth orchestra is going to Paris and Normandy for a week-long tour, performing at La Madeleine Church in Paris. So that's very exciting. Wow. And then also doing like a wreath-laying ceremony, and our whole itinerary is online. If anyone's interested, they can email me. But we have a lot of students and parents going, and it's going to be really, really fun.
Great.
I'm so excited.
Okay, so Miss Knight is kind of the lead over the private instruments, and so I don't know if you want to introduce the others right now.
Sure, yeah. Yeah, so our private lesson program has expanded, and we have all 4 of these teachers right here teaching different lessons. So I'll let them go ahead and just talk. I already introduced Dana Apollonio, who's teaching some of the orchestra lessons. So we're teaming together for that. She is a viola specialist, so she does a lot of the viola and cello lessons, so that's really great. And I'll let our piano teacher, Doris Kohler, talk a little bit about what she does in her piano lessons.
Yeah. And Doris, how long have you been at Foothill?
I've been here for 35 years.
35 years.
So Foothill is it's like a family. I mean, it's really special, not just staff, but students. I mean, to get to know students, year after year, it's just so special. So I teach piano lessons, so we do them one-on-one. They start as early as TK. You can go to 8th grade. Of course, in TK, up to about 1st grade, it's kind of different. They start with colors. They associate it with notes. But they also later on, I noticed, oh, this is a C or this is a G. They recognize what the notes are, and they continue from there. We also do whiteboards where they're actually drawing the notes. So recognizing them that way. We do songs, we do recitals, 2 recitals a year. So one in winter, which is January, another one in May. This gives you a chance, and family and friends to see what they do. Because a lot of times, I don't know if they play at home. I hope so. I hope they practice, because practice is so very important. If you don't practice, you don't go as far as fast.
Yeah.
And parents, it's very important that you're behind, especially the young children. So sometimes the older, they do it on their own, but really, really encourage them. Sometimes just ask them, ooh, I like that song. Can you play that again for me? Or, oh, I think I heard wrong note. It makes a difference. They think you're interactive with them and they go, wow, this is pretty neat. So, also for the older kids, they do like classical, they do easy listening, they do jazz, they do rock and roll. I've had, we're in 8th grade, they've done solo recitals. I just started it. I just, so I've done it a couple of years where they just play 15 to 20 songs. They're it. So they have a little intermission in between. They get the opportunity to say, hey, they work on it all year. They can work on different things too, but that's their focus for the year pretty much. So I've done that with them. Trying to think.
And Miss, can I just say about the recital real quick? When it's like the capstone event for her piano students, and what's really cool at Foothill, the fact that we teach, and maybe it's caught as much as it's taught, is that everybody's good at something, and so what's really cool is you're not more important or more special because you play sports so kids recognize everybody's good at something. And they're comfortable in their own skin. It's okay if, so some of what's cool about those capstone recitals, the students show up and cheer on their classmates to recognize the giftedness in them. And so thank you. And we're gonna keep moving then if you're okay with that, all right? And so we're gonna hand it to Zoe, and let me just say that about the piano real quick. We notice, they tell me, that that students who take piano lessons get that foundation, and often when they pick up in 3rd grade, and maybe you can explain that a little bit, what happens at 3rd grade, because everybody gets music, but in 3rd grade it gives more opportunities. But kids who have a piano foundation often go progress further and faster in the other instruments as they go along. So it's a great foundation, and I'm not saying just stick with it, but I'm just saying is a great thing to start with. But Zoe, introduce yourself and a little bit about your program.
Hello, my name is Zoe. This is my 2nd year at Foothill as the general music teacher, and I also teach private vocal lessons, and I'm the Selah Choir director. And then this is one of my favorite things. I get to lead worship for the chapels for elementary and junior high, and so I have a couple hats, but yeah, so I start general music for TK all the way to 2nd, and then kind of like Amy mentioned, when they get to 3rd grade, they're given an option. So they can either come and do general music with me, and we switch things up a little bit. I'll explain what that looks like, or they can go and they can start orchestra with Miss Apollonio. So if they choose to do my track of general music at 3rd grade, then we introduce the recorder. And so even just as Mr. G mentioned, like the music theory knowledge background, if they do piano at that early age, it helps me a lot. So when they come in, I mean, my goal is that they really would get a basic introduction to music theory. And so it is through the most annoying instrument in the world, which is the recorder, to be honest. And so my goal this year is to switch off of that annoying instrument as soon as possible. And so I'm going to be introducing ukuleles, which I'm really excited for. And so, but with recorders, I mean, it is really neat. I get to see my kids, they get really excited about the instrument. They get excited when they make that connection, like Doris was saying, with the music. And then later on with ukuleles, I just think it's fantastic because then they get a really good rhythm introduction, because the ukulele is a string instrument, it's a rhythm instrument, and so that's what my role looks like here at Foothill.
Good. Thank you very much for that. And there's one chair missing here, and that is we need to get back to offering band. We used to have a very prolific band. I mean, they were playing Count Basie style, right? They play a number and somebody stand up and hit that sax solo. It was amazing. And since COVID, we haven't been able to find a band teacher. So, so we want to get that back. Pray for us about that. But that's something that what would happen then is at that 3rd grade, the kids could pick vocal and general music, orchestra, or band. And that's where we got to get back to. So that's coming. Anything else? Okay, so, and again, if you have to leave, feel free. But part of what we teach the kids is that made in the image of God. One of those things is sometimes it's Sometimes it's service, sometimes response, being made in the image of God as we worship. Sometimes is we lead, we serve, we steward. But there's a part of us that also is beauty creators. And so when you think about art, you think about orchestra and how much that enriches our lives. That's, I think, a reflection of the Imago Day as well. So,
Can I just add one more thing through music too? Like, I think sometimes we forget that it is a universal language too. So now we're equipping our students to not just, show the Imago Day, like we are going to create because we have a creator and we worship, but on a universal level, now when our students are thrown out into the world, it's like music is that easy connection, even art, theater. I mean, you can go to France and relate to people in Paris through music. And now we're unlocking so much more for our students because now they get to be a part of that building relationships and through, this kind of music and visual art and all those things. I just want to add that too. Yeah.
Great. And so as I've been, as different ones have been talking, I've been scrolling through some of the web pages in our Fine Arts tab, and I think they've been scrolling online as well. Probably better than me. I just realized I hadn't been doing that. I'm catching up. So I want you to know that there's a lot of information and pictures and things on our website about these programs. And so at this time, I'd like to introduce our theater director, Jen Robinson. Jen has been with Foothill 17 years. 19? I asked her yesterday, Jen, you've been here 17 years. She said, no, 19. Okay, I'll get it right tomorrow, but I didn't. So anyway, 19 years. I'm sure those of you here, even in the online viewers, have been to some of these performances. They're just absolutely amazing. And so, Jen, talk to us about your program and maybe a little bit about the celebration, and then also what programs are you going to do this spring? But I'll let you talk.
Well, we just cast Newsies, and they're amazing, this group of kids. We are actually going to do a number at the 60th anniversary just to kind of introduce that cast and let you see a little preview of what's to come. That's going to happen in February. The end of February, we have that show. What am I saying? What I do?
Yeah. Well, it's an elective class.
Right.
And then when
So there's a variety of opportunities in middle school for the theater program. It starts off first trimester. Anybody can sign up. There's no auditions, and we always prepare for the gala or this. Now it's an anniversary, but there's always some performance component in there, and it's usually one class is like an advanced group, and the other class is usually sixth graders or newer people to the program. So we have we used to call us thespians because we were part of the International Thespian Society, and I was on the board of that, the California board. And this year we're not doing it, and I quit doing the board. Their beliefs and what they were the direction they were going did not align with us as a Christian school. So we'll talk about some stuff we're doing instead. But so instead of reapplying and being thespians this year, we just have advanced theater. So the kids kind of work their way up to that. And it's kind of like the varsity team in sports, where these are the kids that want to do this all year long. This is like their number one thing. They love theater. A lot of them are in orchestra too because they're musical. But it's their go-to, and they want to spend all hours doing it of the day. And we go to festivals and do all kinds of things. So there's like this opportunity for kids that are just full force, I want to be theater. And then there's also that I just want to do one semester or trimester. I want to take one class and see if I like it. So yeah, the fall is everybody. So when we have our 60th celebration, there will be, I think I have about 30 altogether, with the advanced and the more beginner class, and they're performing all together. So they are in two separate classes. It's tricky, but they perform for the show together. So we're always trying to have extra rehearsals outside of school and stuff to try to bring them together. Then in the second trimester, if they make the play, and it's actually, it's really hard to make the play. That sounds kind of mean because it's a school program, but they have to do a solo audition, they have to be able to act in their audition, and then they come to a dance audition, and we have a professional choreographer who actually works at Claremont High School and some different ballet schools, and she's really good, and she pushes them really hard. And she actually said our last year's cast did better tap than Claremont High School. So she does high level dance with them and does make it difficult. So yeah, when the kids come through those auditions, and I always tell the kids, come back again next year, because you know, if you don't make it this year, it doesn't mean you won't. A lot of 6th graders don't make it, and then by 8th grade, they're the stars of the program. So it's definitely a building thing, but the more classes they sign up for, usually the more opportunity they have to make the harder plays. But then in the spring, anybody can sign up again, and we do, it depends on the year. Like this year, we're gonna be doing a Christian festival I'm working with at APU, and we do monologues. They work on solos or if they're more of an actor, they can do a monologue. If they like to sing, they can do a musical theater number, group numbers. And then we work on individual events and just building like even audition material if they're going to high school for, if they want to do theater or music. And yeah, and it's usually like straight 1-act plays in the spring. So it's just, we try to cover everything.
You know, it's been said that people have said from here, from Foothill, you can go anywhere. And when our kids go into theater, maybe some have gone to the performing arts school in Duarte, others have gone on at the high schools, and they step into roles. One of our students just invited us to see her perform as a freshman. She got a key role in the major play, which they usually, at her high school, public high school, and they usually reserve those for the older students who've paid their dues and that, but she's that good, that talented. So they step onto the high school campuses, and they are leaders, and they get involved, and so that's a great trajectory for them, having a fine arts background from Foothill, wherever that may be. We try not to put kids in a forced choice situation. When you get to high school, sometimes you know, it's hard to play 2 sports. It's hard to get involved in too many things. But here at Foothill, they're still discovering what they're good at and what their interests might be. So I really appreciate that Miss Robinson and Miss Knight, they share students, right? And when they sit down to fight over who gets the kids win, I just tell them, hey, just fight fair, you know. But they do. They work with each other, and when it's high season for the production, Miss Knight backs off a little bit, and vice versa. So that's really good to see. But any other, Amy or Jen, any other closing comments about your program? Maybe it came to your mind as we were passing the mics? No? Yeah. Well, I don't, as far as the theater goes, I mean, the costuming is incredible. You know, from Seussical to Little Mermaid to Beauty and the Beast, and just the productions are just incredibly high end. And every year at our annual fund, we usually have identified the orchestra, theater, sometimes athletics, and technology as those programs that we need extra funding for. Because tuition alone doesn't get us where we need to go. So through the donations, as people resonate with some of those programs and what they want to see happen at Foothill, they give to those. And so this year that will be true also. And so as you see the annual fund lists of projects, then you can participate in your giving and like that. And you can even designate where you want your money to go. So that's cool. Yeah. Any questions from the audience? Yes.
I don't know if there's any other 2nd grade parents here, but I just wanted to get some clarity. I mean, specifically, because 3rd grade is not that far away. When do we have to make that decision? How is that made? Do you guys help us, help our children? Like, what's that process look like? Because we're not a musically talented family, so, you know, I want to give my daughter the best.
Yet.
Has it been
Okay.
built in our home just yet?
Yeah, that's great. Well, we hope to fill your home with music and the arts. Let me just repeat that. So you have a child in 2nd grade, and 3rd grade's just around the corner. How are parents guided and students guided to select a track and find their way in the fine arts department? So Amy?
Yeah, so at the end of 2nd grade in the general music class, Zoe will go over just learning about some of the instruments, the basics of the orchestra. If we have a band, that would be included in that as well. And then at the start of 3rd grade, we bring all of the students together the very first week of music classes. And we show them a video called George Meets the Orchestra, where they learn about the different orchestra instruments. We show them the violin, the viola, the cello, talk to them, give them some education on the different instruments. We also email parents, send some paperwork home with parents explaining the options and the choices, and so that parents can help their students make the educated decision. Do they want to choose the orchestra track, meaning they're learning violin in 3rd grade, but if they want to learn cello eventually, they should do orchestra track. Viola, same thing, string bass. If they're really wanting to focus primarily on just vocal music, or if they want to do other instruments, they could choose general music if they're just not interested in orchestra. Sela choir is different though, and that's important. I think that's one thing we maybe didn't mention. Any students can join Sela choir. Is it
Fourth
starting?
and fifth.
Fourth and fifth now. In the past, we've included 3rd grade, but now it's just fourth and fifth. But Sela choir meets at a totally separate time than the music classes, than the orchestra and the general music. So we have, if students want to sing, they could do orchestra and be in Sela choir when they get to 4th grade. So does that answer your question? Awesome.
Yeah. Yes.
Do you ever have kids that change their mind and like want to do one thing one year and one thing the next year?
Of course. Yeah. So we do encourage students. We always want students to have a good reason if they're wanting to switch. When they're in 3rd grade, if they really want to choose a different track in 4th grade, we just want to know why. If it's a good reason because they really have a new interest that came up or something happened over the summer, that's different than, oh, my friend is in this class or something. And we love parent involvement. We always want to make sure parents know and understand students having good reasons for switching, because one thing I found in the length of time I've been teaching here now is that students who pick an instrument, it takes a long time to get proficient at a string instrument. It's not something they're going to learn in the first year, even 2 or 3 years. Practicing at home, of course, really important, but just commitment over time to that instrument. And so it's easier to add instruments later. So if they really work, say they choose violin, they do it in 3rd grade, 4th grade, 5th grade, even through middle school, and then maybe 8th grade or high school, they're like, I want to add a trumpet, or I want to learn a different instrument as well. But they have that foundation. Or whether it's piano, and I love when students stick with their piano lessons all the way through orchestra as well, if they're able to do that. It helps them just build that proficiency on one instrument, which is so much more valuable than, well, I did this instrument this year, and then this one, and then I did this sport, and then that sport, and then they're kind of,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good. Yes.
For Ms. Robinson, do you ever recruit younger kids to come into some of the performances? And what can we do as parents to prepare those younger 5th graders so they're ready to go for 6th grade when they actually get picked
Yeah,
performances?
the last couple of years we haven't, it depends on the show. So when we did Seussical, 4th and 5th graders played Who's. And when we did Willy Wonka, we used to have a big cheer team. All the cheerleaders were, Oompa Loompas.
We're getting there.
Yeah.
We're getting there.
Cheer
Mrs. Robinson.
started this week.
Even in Little Mermaid, we had 4th and 5th graders. So it really depends on the show. And if there's an opportunity, I'd like to bring them in. Zoe, I'm so thankful for Zoe because I was just getting too overwhelmed and busy. But I was working with the 4th and 5th graders up till winter of last year. And I just had so many things. I like to say my job's more of an event planner because I only have a couple classes a day, but I'm just always working on the event of whatever the programs are. So Zoe really helped, and now she has them. So normally I was seeing those kids all the time, but I would say I'm working with a lot of them with this 60th anniversary, so that's been fun to be with them again. But mostly when they go into 6th grade, just signing up for that first trimester, first class, is that's where I kind of really work with them and build foundations with them. So by 7th and 8th grade, it's not something, there's a lot of natural talent, but a lot of these kids, they learn so fast, and if they love it, it's just, you can make them help them shine because they just naturally
And Ms.
wanna do
Robinson,
it.
I think the summer camps, there's an orchestra camp, there's a theater camp, and they put together in 2 weeks a phenomenal show. And I think that's how kids can begin to see if they like it. Also, Ms. Robinson can begin to see the talent pool she's got, at least for those who are in those camps. And so that's a great thing to keep in mind too.
Yeah.
I do want to say, and I'm not just trying to pump them up. The kids that play an instrument or piano are 10 steps above everybody in class because they walk in here and I hand them sheet music and I'm like, go, we're singing. And I'm expecting your finger to be on those notes and those words. And if the kids that have never seen music before, that does set them behind. And the ones, you can tell the ones that have a musical foundation and they can like be the leaders in the class right away.
Yeah, and that's what I was going to add. Now that we have, we have these private lessons leading up, available, TK and up, and then that addition of vocal lessons too, added to that. But even Mrs. Robinson isn't just looking for the best singers, the best actors. There's a choreography piece too. Like there's been people who have shined just because they're good dancers. And, like the phrase, there's no small parts, only small actors. She, through choreography, because we have actually a choreographer come, into these elective classes. So they're learning from the pros. They, even an ensemble person is working on, they still have an important part, of that theater part. And that's something they can work on outside of school too. So you have private lessons, vocal lessons, dance, outside of school that will lead up to prepare them for those theater moments too.
Like you mentioned ensemble, the theater group went up to Azusa Pacific to see a performance, and when they got back, they were kind of debriefing. And I was having a conversation. Miss Robinson invites me into or I walk through on purpose, intentionally, and so maybe I could see a song they're working on. But before we did that, I was asking the kids what they thought of, and I told them one of my favorite parts in a musical is when someone might be singing the solo and then the cast, the whole ensemble joins in and it fills the room, right? I just incredible. I go, so if you are in the ensemble, there is no small parts, like you said. So anyway, so I shared that, and then they were all nodding, and And then so they did the song that they did, they performed for me the song that they were going to sing at the talent show. And sure enough, started off with a couple solos and boom, the ensemble comes in. And I'm like, that's what I'm talking about there. It was brings me joy. So thank you for all your hard work.
For Newsies this year, I told the kids in auditions, I'm like, not to downplay some of the lead roles, but the ensemble is where you want to be in the show because this is like, they're on stage the whole time singing and dancing, and in some of these roles, they'll come out, 2 or 3 scenes, and they might have big monologues or lines, but this is an ensemble show. And I try to pick a lot of those because I really want to highlight the cast.
And I'm glad you mentioned about the dance and something because I mentioned we need a band. One of the things that we just can't even begin to really think about just because we don't have the space right now, but I'd like to see dance class offered as well. I think that's what some kids are good at. And I mean, and that's what's cool about Foothill. We're big enough that we can offer a lot, right? And we're small enough, we're still like family. But I think dance is another component that I think would have interest here. But we're already just so crammed, packed with different rooms. And so we're looking at options for how to give the fine arts program more dedicated spaces and that kind, because we really work hard at sharing facilities around here. It's really a challenge. But we're grateful for all the resources we do have to support the program. But a lot of you don't know that in that closet there, I think that closet, there's a bunch of rolling mirrors. It's like it's a tight cellophane or whatever that, and so they line those up. So while the kids are doing the choreography part, they can see themselves performing, and that adds to it. But that's just a little tiny resource that makes a difference in those choreography classes. Okay, any last questions before we close? No? Okay. Anything come online there, guys, that maybe, no? Okay.
8 people watching.
Okay, great. Well, thank you for tuning in. We appreciate it. And then we'll probably repackage this and put it out there online. And by the way, I will say, coming up, we want to introduce technology, our technology team and our programs. We also want to introduce kind of the faith transformation a little bit. Our people who lead the chapels and some of the things that we're doing in that area. We think that's important for people to know. It's kind of core to our mission. But I will say, Ms. Wilson was a key organizer. She was on point for the Protect Young Eyes Parent U, and it was phenomenal. I mean, phenomenal. And so that presentation was recorded and put online. Now it's a 45-minute deal,
Yeah.
but I would just say, I mean, skip Netflix for a night, right? Tune into this because you'll sit there and you'll be inspired and you'll have tools. Number one, you'll be a little more informed,
Yeah.
a little bit more ready to start having conversations maybe you didn't think you wouldn't have to have till later,
Yeah.
and ways that you can help make your home safer technology-wise.
Yeah.
Very practical and helpful. We're going to piggyback on that when we talk about technology or maybe even faith transformation, because we feel that that's something that we invested in that for our families, and we sure hope it's being utilized and engaged and helpful to our parents.
And real quick, if you're looking for that link, there was an email sent out. We also had student assemblies with some of those videos. But on our website, if you go to Current Families,
Which I'm doing there,
Yeah.
and we may not have that online, but go to
Yeah.
the website, Current Families.
and you go to Parent University, so scroll up to Current, they're actually on the right side there. There's previous seminars we've done, but then also resources for you as parents, books that we recommend with topics through technology, or links to the seminar we just had. But it is so practical, and in fact, if you are a parent or someone out in cyberspace there, it has a story to share with us about your journey. Maybe there's a practical thing you've implemented in your home. We'd love to hear about it, just so that we can hear, how we can continue to support our other parents too. Because it's not just efforts we put in our own homes for our own children. This is a community effort that, if one of our children go to a friend's house, another parent from our school, and they have a different access point to technology, that changes everything. But if we can be on the same page as a community to keep our kids safe, that's a game changer.
Yeah.
And so there's already things even in my own home that I'm like, wow, we got to tap into this. We're going to do this now. Now we have a different viewpoint of when we're going to get a phone, what we're going to put in our house. And I just think I highly recommend taking the time.
Yeah.
And then share it with each other. If you watch it, be the advocate and the voice for our school to share it with another parent that you're familiar with here at school, so that they can come alongside. Because I think that's really what's going to make a huge difference, is if we're talking to another, pointing to each other these resources. That way our kids, we talk about security and safety here, and that's so important, but there's a whole nother internet safety where we have to be responsible for our kids. So just wanted to add that.
That's
Yeah.
great. I
Yeah.
can't really add to that other than I want to share one little tip that he shared, and with our kids and with that night on the video. Often kids get exposed to something. A friend will come up, or and he used words with the younger kids like somebody being tricky. They want to show you something you shouldn't see. But before you just look at it, say, hey, I want to show you something, and say, well, what is it? All right, and then so before you just, look at, a meme or whatever it might be, it may not be appropriate. And then, it's just, what is it? So that little tool right there can protect young eyes from seeing something that they shouldn't see. And
It's good.
yeah, great, good stuff. All right, let me close in prayer. Lord, thank you for all the ways you've blessed Foothill with people like our fine arts team, resources through the generosity.